Commerce is an incredible thing. I have had a snowblower for a really long time, and I pulled it out of storage recently and ran it. And then my entire garage smelled like an oil tanker had spilled fuel all over the place. And I just decided it's probably a carburetor or whatever those parts are in an engine, I don't know. But the fact that I don't know what that is means I'm probably not going to pull the engine apart and check it out. And it was getting older, and the hitch pins started to fall off. I'm like, it's just time to bite the bullet and buy a new snowblower. So I went to a couple area stores and priced them out, and then I went online and I found a snowblower that was comparable on Amazon for 2/3 of the price, and I decided absolutely, that's what I'll do. So I ordered it from Amazon, and I got the shipping notification, and I was very excited. And then I started watching, and last Wednesday, we had to have some labels delivered for the check-in down at the Lakeside Kids and Lakeside Littles. And if we would have them delivered to the church, it would take an additional week. But if we'd have them delivered to the Amazon locker in Green Bay, right outside of a grocery store, they would be there last Wednesday. So that's a no-brainer. We'll just have them delivered there. And so I'm tracking 2 packages, and that's what my life's come to. Like, these are the things I find exciting now, is monitoring shipping updates. And I'm watching the packages, and it's out for delivery, and then it doesn't get delivered. And the reason that it doesn't get delivered is the business is closed. Now, they were getting delivered to the Amazon lockers, which are outside of the business. So even if the business was closed, which it was not, that would not impact the delivery. I delivered mail for a summer. I understand how deliveries work. So I was a little annoyed with that. So I got on the phone with Amazon and sorted that out. They were there the next day. And then I saw that my snowblower, which was supposed to be delivered that day, was not going to be delivered that day. And so I just got on to track the shipment, and they said, don't worry about it. We're going to expedite it, and we're going to expedite it. You'll have it soon. Fantastic. Thursday came around, and after 24 hours of being told it would be expedited and I'd have it soon, no updates. And that's when I started to get a little annoyed. And I just started reaching out to customer service and said, hey, is there any update? Because you have to understand something about me. I haven't even said it yet. This is hard for me to admit. I am not the handiest person that you'll ever meet. And so when some people say putting together a snowblower will take a couple hours, I'd already planned the entire day to put together that snowblower. That's wisdom. I understand that it's going to take me a little bit longer. So I had my whole day planned, and I just needed to know when the snowblower was going to get there, and customer service wouldn't give me any information. And so I escalated that to Amazon. And then I was on the phone with Amazon when we talked to the shipping company, and they hung up not on me, but on Amazon twice. Twice hung up on Amazon. I didn't even have to get Amazon fired up. They were fired up for me, which is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. I thought maybe I'm going to have to do some motivation. Nope, I didn't have to do motivation. Century, wherever you are, God bless you. Thank you very much. She was motivated enough for both of us. And I was just kicking back and listening to it. It was fun. And then my snowblower was lost. After I was told it was sitting at a terminal in Sturgeon Bay. Now, I just said, tell me what terminal. I'll drive and pick it up. I don't mind. I'll go get it from the terminal. We can't release that information to you, sir. Well, now it's completely lost. So I let a couple days go by, and my blood pressure come back down to reasonable levels. And on Monday, I went to Home Depot online, and I found the same snowblower for $50 more. And I ordered it. And wouldn't you know, by Tuesday at 8:30 in the morning, that snowblower was delivered to my house in my driveway. And I'm like, thank God for Home Depot. This is incredible. This is incredible. What took over 2 weeks and was absolutely lost. And I was really happy Tuesday. And I didn't think about it again. And this one even came assembled. Well, worth the $50. Even came assembled. Didn't think about anything of it. Thursday morning, I'm leaving for work, and I open up the garage door, and there's a snowblower in a box on a pallet that I've already been refunded for, sitting in my driveway. And I call Amazon. And the recording says, hey, we can't do anything about this return because it's been outside of the 30-day window, which number one is not true. And number two, they've already refunded me my money. And so now I'm having this existential crisis of conscience of, do I push through their system and say, no, really, you need to look at this even though they've told me there's nothing they can do? Or do I just sell this thing on the black market? I decided to give it one more try. So I talked to a representative, and they said, thanks for letting us know. We'll line up somebody to come pick it up from you. Well, then they send me a window that doesn't work for my schedule, and I've already got my money back, so that schedule's not going to work. And I call them back and say, hey, that window that you've given me isn't going to work. I already have things scheduled for that time. We need to reschedule that window. And they say, we'll be in touch with you. And I have not heard a word from them ever since. Now, you might wonder, are we just therapy for you, Brian? Why are you sharing all of this with us? And that's because today what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about planning. We're going to talk about wisdom, and we're going to talk about how Solomon had shipping routes, and how those shipping routes have led to something that's confused a lot of people, but it's something we're going to look at today. If you have your phones or your tablets, I'd invite you to follow along with us in the Bible app. It's a free resource that you can download in the App Store of your choosing. And we've been walking through the book of Ecclesiastes, and we're going to continue that today in Ecclesiastes chapter 11. If you have a traditional Bible with you, again, Ecclesiastes chapter 11. And for those of you joining us via the stream, thank you so much. The verses are available on the screen below. As this morning we talk about the importance of a plan and how Solomon understood that as a businessman. Ecclesiastes 11, 1 and 2 give us some of the context of that. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7 or even to 8, for you know not what disaster may happen on earth. Now, Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 1 has confused a lot of people. And a lot of people have tried to understand the meaning of cast your bread upon the waters. Because if you've ever thrown a loaf of bread out on the water, if you've ever thrown little bits of bread out for the ducks to eat, that was one of my first dates. I was broke. I was in high school, and I thought she would like it. She did. We took some stale bread out of the cupboard at my house, and we just went and we fed ducks, this little bread. But you understand that if you throw the bread in the water, it's going to get soggy. And so this has confused a lot of people. What does Solomon mean when he says, cast your bread upon the waters? Well, 1 Kings chapter 10 gives us the answer to this. 1 Kings 10:22 details the trading routes that Solomon had. The promised land, Israel, is a strategic place of real estate, especially when there isn't air travel. And so all of the trade routes from Africa and from Europe would have to come through the Middle East. They would have to go through Israel. There's the Mediterranean there, which enabled shipping. There's some land trails that were less rough terrain than other areas. And so this was a very strategic area for trade. And one of the things that Solomon established in his business were these elaborate trading routes. One of them was shipping. And 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 22 details for us the immense return that Solomon would experience. But here's the thing. It took 3 years to experience those returns. Now, we're used to getting packages 2 days or even the next day after we order something. So there wasn't that instant nature of it, but Solomon really was setting the mold for a lot of the things that are still done today in terms of trade from one place to another. And so when Solomon says, cast your bread upon the waters, what he's talking about these trade routes that he would send out, and they would take 3 years from the time they would leave until they would come back with his return. 1 Kings chapter 10 details these for us. Verse 22 goes into detail about that return. Massive returns, but it took 3 years to experience those returns. And this is why planning's important. Planning's important, number one, you don't just load up a ship and then say, go somewhere. It has a route, and it's going to be profitable, and you have to send goods that other places want on the ship to get the goods that you want in return. There's a plan at place right there. There's a plan at place that you don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Give a portion to 7 or even to 8, for you know not what disaster may happen on earth. So here are a couple principles that we see about planning with our finances from Solomon, who was ultra wealthy and knew a lot about this. Number one is this: to spread out your investments. Spread out your investments. Be generous. Be generous. Don't hoard it all back. Give a portion to 7 or even to 8. Be generous. Spread them out. Diversify. Be generous. Don't put all your hope into one thing. And as people that love and follow God, this takes even another step further for us into the spiritual realm. To not put all of our hope in one thing. Just in the same way, it's not the wisest to have all of your investment in one solo fund. It's certainly, for those of us who have the spiritual component of this and understand it, it's not wise for us to put all of our focus and all of our energy and all of our time on just the here and the now in this world. And that's why every week when we assemble together, we have an opportunity to give back a portion to God, that which He's entrusted to us. Because we understand that we are just stewards of what ultimately belongs to God anyway. And every time we give back a portion to God that He's entrusted to us, it is a reminder to us, whether it's on the forefront of our minds or not, but it is a reminder to us that we are not putting all of our hope in this world. We're not putting all of our hope in the here and the now. And I just want to pause right now, and I just want to thank the people of Lakeside. Thank every one of you who were so incredibly generous in the month of November. You know, we had a goal, and our goal was to raise $50,000 in the month of November, and unfortunately we came a little bit shy, but we're still super excited because we raised $43,000 in the month of November, which is awesome. And October 30th, we had the largest giving on a Sunday that we've ever recorded in the history of Lakeside. So some of you are overachievers, and you gave early. So there's this crisis of, do we count that towards November or not? And I said November, so we decided not to. But because of your incredible generosity, thank you. We are able to help. We are able to help families right now. We're able to help individuals who are caught up in human trafficking, especially during this time of year. Thank you for your generosity. We are excited. We're putting together the plans now to begin interviewing architects and to talk to different firms and to start to lay out the plans for expanding our space here so that we can continue to impact people with the hope of Jesus. And so from the bottom of the heart of the people of Lakeside, I just want to say thank you very much for your generosity, and it is very much appreciated. Thank you. If the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. And if a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it will lie. Some things are just what they are. Some things are just what they are. And sometimes people want to over-spiritualize everything. They want to over-spiritualize a snowstorm, or they want to over-spiritualize a tree falling down. And sometimes there's spiritual implications, and certainly there's war going on in an unseen realm, and that's what we're going to talk about in the month of January as we go through the armor of God in Ephesians. I'm excited about that. But sometimes things just are what they are. And sometimes things happen just because we live in a fallen, in a broken world that isn't perfect anymore because sin is in the place. And if the clouds are full, it's going to rain. They're going to empty themselves. And it doesn't necessarily mean that something's against you. Sometimes it just rains. And I know sometimes that's inconvenient. But sometimes it just rains. And sometimes trees just fall down. Some things are just what they are. He who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. This is analysis paralysis. Sometimes we can get so caught up in situations, sometimes we can get so caught up in events that we overanalyze everything. And we sit there and we pick it apart. And have you ever done this? I have a million times. Have you ever the night before a meeting gone through the dialogue? Not that you're going to say. You know what you're going to say. But have you ever tried to figure out the response that you're going to have to the response that somebody else has? So you're not only thinking what you're going to say, but now you've gotten to the point where you're projecting on somebody else the response that they have to have based on what you've said, and then how you're going to respond if they respond this way or that way. I mean, you drive yourself absolutely crazy. You can find yourself here in analysis paralysis, where you take all the information and you just continue to go through it in your mind. And sometimes you just have to make a choice. Sometimes you just have to make a decision. Now, make no mistake, I would encourage you, if something's heavy on your heart, pray about it. Absolutely, start there. Pray about it. And then pray about it again. And think through things. And think through what could happen. But at some point in life, you're going to have to make a choice. You're going to have to make a decision. And so often, we can just get bogged down with analysis paralysis because we just sit there and we just want to crunch all of the data, and then we miss our opportunity to actually do something, or we put it off and it just grows to become this giant point of frustration in our lives. Pray about it, think through the implications, and then act. As you do not know the way the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. God is supreme. God is supreme. And sometimes things just happen. And sometimes God is orchestrating them all together. And we don't necessarily see it. A couple weeks ago, I needed to be somewhere. And I had Brooke and the boys with me. We were driving along, and there was a situation going on that was taking my focus, and it was taking longer than I wanted it to take, and I had to be on a call, and I didn't want to be on the call, but I had to be on the call, and I put it off as long as I could, but there was a meeting I had to get to, and we had to leave because we were going to be late if we didn't leave. But when we drive to Lakeside, we lose phone reception in a couple spots, and this was a call I couldn't lose reception on, which sometimes is a great thing to lose reception. This was not one of those times, and so there is a way that I can come. It takes me a couple minutes longer, but I have phone reception for long. I know where the dead spots are everywhere between here and Sturgeon Bay, and so I'm like, all right, we're going to take the longer route. Well, then the call ended sooner than I thought it was going to, right after I'd made the decision to take the longer route. So I did a quick U-turn, and I then got caught at a red light, and I was just really annoyed. I was really frustrated because I was going to a really important meeting, and I was delayed probably 30 seconds. But it's just at the time when you're delayed that 30 seconds, and I'm driving along, and I'm way more frustrated than I should be about being delayed. Way more frustrated. It just was one of those days where it just seemed like nothing is going right now. And it's just one of those moments where some people would just be like, God, could you not just throw me a bone? I mean, just one today. And by some people, I mean, that's exactly what I said. I was right there. I was frustrated. I'm like, God, I know you control everything. So And I wasn't saying this super loud. I didn't want the bull, but I'm just talking to Brooke, and I'm like, could he not just orchestrate this a little bit better for us? Like, what is he doing, and where is he right now? Why isn't he orchestrating things? And as I said that, I look up, and I don't know what those of you who are hunting were doing this year, but you did not do a good job. Because there is one of the biggest deers I've ever seen running across the road right up in front of us. And I don't know if that's where I would have been 30 seconds from where I was. But I know it caught my attention. And it's only because of that giant deer that I then saw the 4 deer who were about to dart out right in front of us. And I slammed on our brakes. And they stopped and they ran the other way. And as I started to accelerate, all I heard was the quiet voice of my wife say, I think God just orchestrated something. God is supreme. And sometimes it's in our joy. And sometimes it's through things that frustrate us. But He's at work. And I just want to encourage you, especially if you're at that place right now, where it's not just been a frustrating day, but it's been a month, and it's been a year. Maybe if we're honest, it's been most of your life. Like, God, could you not just throw me a bone? Could you not just do something? I just want to encourage you that the God who knit you together in your mother's womb, who knows you intimately, down to how many hairs you have on your head, or for some of you, how many hair you used to have on your head. God loves you no less today than the day He started knitting you together. He is aware of your frustration. He is aware of your failure. He is aware of your success. He is aware of your joy. And we don't always know what He's up to. I just want to ask, what makes you think He'd stop caring about you? In the morning, sow your seed, and at evening, withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. For some people, this is a side hustle. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Work hard. Put your energy and your effort in. Work hard. This is why we talk about finding a job that brings you joy, finding something and doing something that you love. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Work hard and recognize that work is a gift. It is not a curse. Work is a gift. Work existed before sin in God's original plan in the Garden of Eden. We were created, we were designed to do things. We were not created, we were not designed just to sit around all the time. So find things that energize you. Find things that you love to do. Work is a gift. Find the things that bring you passion. Find the things that bring you enjoyment. Light is sweet, and it is pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. Now, there's a physical principle here that we all are experiencing right now because the sun hasn't made many appearances lately, and it looks like midnight at 3:30 in the afternoon. And for some people, this affects them more than others. Seasonal affective disorder is a very real thing. And so there's a physical principle here that we all understand, that light is sweet, and it's pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. And sometimes the sun has to disappear for a while for us to know this. But there's also even a greater principle here for us. And there's a spiritual principle. We are to walk in the light. What did Jesus say In John 8:12, I am the light of the world. Jesus is the light. Following Jesus, a life lived in pursuit of Jesus, is sweet and it's pleasant. It is pleasant when we pursue after God with our lives. What are we chasing after? What are we striving for? What gets our energy? What gets our effort? Are we running after God? Are we walking in the light? As Jesus said, I am the light of the world. Are we reflecting that light? Are we, as people that love and follow Jesus in this world, being a city on a hill, showing that light to all? Do we reflect the hope that we have in Him? Are we that light? Because it's pleasant for the eyes. So if a person lives many years, let him rejoice in them all. But let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. Enjoy life. Enjoy life. But remember this: the best is yet to come. Enjoy life, but remember the best is yet to come. Again, I take you back to one of my favorite C.S. Lewis quotes. Should we leave with any regret? There are far better things that lie ahead than any we leave behind. Find joy in life, but recognize that this is a broken and a flawed world. And sometimes, because it's a broken and flawed world, things just happen because they happen. Sometimes it just rains. There isn't always a greater principle behind it. There's going to be disappointment. There's going to be dissatisfaction. Life is going to be hard sometimes. And by the way, this is one of the reasons that we gather together. We gather together because when we experience those hard times, we're reminded all the more that we need community. Because it's how we were designed. We need one another. We need to be encouraged. We need other people to cheer us on. We need to pray for one another. Life is going to be hard sometimes, and this is one of the reasons that gathering together is so important, because it is a reminder that there is something that is bigger than our circumstances. There is something that is bigger than our problems that binds us together. That's the community that we have as a result of our shared faith. We don't show up just to say hi, but that we find our people. And that we know, hey, I can ask them to pray for me. And they're not just going to say, I'm praying for you. They actually mean it. They might even pray for me right now. When I tell them something that's going on, or when I ask them to pray for me. That they're going to ask me how things are. They're going to check in with me. When life gets hard, they're going to be there. This is why we gather. It's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons. Because community matters, and this is what God has called us to be. Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and the sight of your eyes, but know that for all these things God will bring you into judgment. Remove vexation from your heart and put away pain from your body, for youth and the dawn of life are vanity. So just follow your passions. Enjoy life, but live right. Do the right thing. You'll give an account before God one day. Remove vexation. Put away the pain from your body. But all this is vanity. And we talk about a plan. And we talk about finances having means. And we talk about community. And we talk about circumstances. And then we get to this. And as we close chapter 11, we see right here an invitation for us to enjoy life. But right on the heels of the principle that life is going to be difficult. And it's not going to be easy. And the theme of anxiety is introduced here. And the reason that we talk about a plan, the reason that we talk about all of these things is because these are ways that we can combat this. These are ways that we can combat anxiety, that if we have a plan, if we're responsible with our finances, if we understand that sometimes things just aren't going to go our way, if we remember that God knit us together, if we find community, these are all ways that we can combat those anxious thoughts that plague our minds. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, through prayer and supplication, present your requests to God. That the God who knit you together in your mother's womb has not forgotten you, and He still loves and cares for you. That we live in a broken and a flawed world. So things aren't always going to be right. But if we're wise in how we live, if we make plans, if we are wise with our finances, if we have a proper perspective, if we have community, these are all tools that we can use to combat the anxious feelings and thoughts that we experience. I'm not saying for everyone they will remove them entirely. The brain, like any part of our bodies, can get sick. And there are situations and there are circumstances that sometimes anxiety becomes so overwhelming. It's not a spiritual issue, it's a physical issue of something going on in your brain. And there is no shame in seeking out a doctor. There's no shame in being honest and pursuing medication if there's a chemical thing going on in your brain. But sometimes the anxieties that we face have nothing to do with that. And they're present in our lives because we don't have a plan. Because we weren't responsible with our finances. Because we don't have a proper perspective. And because we don't have a community. And that's not the life that God wants us to lead. So when you're there and you find yourself with those anxious thoughts and those anxious feelings, the first step is pray. It's always, always, always pray. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, through prayer and supplication, present your requests for God. Always prayer is the first answer. Whether it's a physical thing or not, the answer doesn't change. It's still prayer. And then start the list. Have I made a plan? Have I been responsible? Do I have the proper perspective? And do I have the community? And if the answer to those things is no, then the solution to your anxiety very well may be discovered if you will put these wise principles in place. Let me be clear. Sometimes it's just something going on in our bodies that all these things can be in place and it won't matter. And that's the time to go see a doctor. That's the time to be honest and to pursue treatment. But sometimes we just need to make sure we're utilizing the tools that God has given us. That we have a plan. We're wise in how we live. We have a proper perspective. And we have a community that cares. And sometimes that is the solution to the things that worry us. God, I pray that we would be people who live a life where we don't worry on things that aren't ultimately important, where we position ourselves to be wise in how we live, that we are people who come up with a plan, we are people who are disciplined in how we live, in terms of our finances and in terms of the other choices that we make. I pray that we'll have the proper perspective in life. And I pray, God, we'll all have community. That every person that walks in these doors knows by the time they walk out that they are loved by you first and foremost. And they are loved by us. That no one feels like they have to walk through life alone. I pray for those right now, God, who are struggling with anxious thoughts and feelings. And I just pray the first thing that would come to their minds when those feelings of anxiety and worry come would be to run to you. They would start with prayer. And they would analyze their plan. Analyze what's going on in their lives. Analyze, God, their perspective. And analyze their community. And if any of those things are not where they need to be, then you would give us the opportunity to serve them and help them figure out the plan so that they could live the most rewarding life possible. This is a broken and a flawed world, God. But we pray that we would be your light, and it would start with how we live our lives. That we would live them for your glory. In your Son's name, Jesus, we do pray.